Good morning, and good morning, Lois. I hope you're about finished with lambing and that it all went well. Well, it'd be nice if you could just all come and we could sit down and have a cuppa and share notes and visit with one another. And I want to tell you the worst thing that I ever did with lambing, one of the worst things, I probably did more than one, but one night, I'm going to back up just a little bit. Remember, we started out with the 4 ewes. Promptly we lost 2 of them, and we wound up with 2 ewes and 5 lambs. Well, if we fast forward a bit, we've got a lot more ewes, and it's in lambing time, and I've been going out checking, and when I get up lots of times I just grab my bathrobe, put it on, go out. Well, one night I went out and one of the ewes was in labor and about there, and I knew it was time. We needed to get him in a jug. A jug is a small space that we could put him in for 3 days, and it would be clean straw. In between times when the jug wasn't used, we'd clean it out and lime it. But anyway, we'd put them in there, we'd clip their and iodine their navels and make sure they got that first taste of mom's warm colostrum milk. And anyway, so I went back in, told Tom, I think it's time to go out. Well, when we got out there, before we could even finish with her, a second ewe was in labor, and she was doing her thing, and as we were helping her, the third one went into, and we had also some ewes that had already lambed and were in jugs, and there was one jug, and I knew it had a problem with the door, the gate, but you know, you're busy, you don't fix it, and I kept thinking it wouldn't be a problem, but what it was high from the ground. I don't know if we cleaned it out once too low, but it was enough where a lamb could lay down and come up on the wrong side. And anyway, in the process of all this lambing, and when we'd clip the navels, lots of times I'd hold the lamb, Tom would clip them, and I'd get that stuff all over my bathrobe. And all during that night when we were helping, there was a little lamb that was just crying, you know, ba ba ba, where's my mom? And I'd pay a little attention to her once in a while, try to get her with what I thought was her mother, and it would turn out, no, this isn't her mother. But she was always sort of out there back in my mind, not a real, because I was busy. So finally we came to the end of that, and she's still running around and still crying. So I carried her over to different mothers, and they said, hey, we don't want her, she's not ours. And then it finally dawned on me, hey, there's that jug, I wonder, and I went in, and the ewe should have had 2 lambs in there, but she only had 1. Ah, now I know, it's hers. So I've been carrying her next to my bathrobe. I put her down. She doesn't smell right. She's got birth fluid from all these other lambs. No, I don't want her. And she wouldn't have anything to do with her. All I could think to do was I grabbed up her brother and, well, first of all, I wiped her down. And then I grabbed up her brother and rubbed them together, and then hoped for the best and went in. Well, they bonded back. They did fine. But don't get your birth fluids mixed up, because that's important. So anyway, that was that one. And then I want to tell you at the end, we started out basically with the 2 ewes. We wound up, if we counted the lambs that last season we had 80. We didn't have a lot of land. Probably we had a lot more sheep than we should have. But what we had done, we divided it into pastures, just like they do now. And some of them were big enough they could stay 2 days, but I had this rotation, and they'd go around, and they had fresh pasture almost every day. There were 2 places I could leave them in 2 or 3 days at a time, and then switch them. So it was a good rotation. And when we first started, like I said, our ground wasn't very good. When we finished, it was wonderful. Things were just, our pastures were just spectacular. Our ground was good. One year into this, I thought, hey, our corral is too big. Let's divide the corral, make it smaller, and the back half I'll put in a garden. That garden, I just couldn't believe how things grew. And this is Idaho, where people say, oh, it's cold and the seasons are short. Well, I had tomatoes by the 4th of July, and just some of the best tomatoes I've ever grown have been in Idaho. And we were in an area at that time, we've lived in 3 different areas of Idaho. This area was about 20 minutes from Boise. And I was listening to, anyway, someone said that the Panhandle was warmer than the rest, and I thought, are they kidding? And we always lived in what people call the banana belt. So we did get snow, but not like other areas. And actually, you learn to appreciate snow because that snow works as an insulation. And one year, this is when we lived in another spot which was much higher elevation, much shorter growing seasons, and the snow came after the heavy, really bad freezes, and we lost a lot of plants. We lost a lot of stuff, and it was hard to go through without that snow covering and making that insulation. So anyway, that's not what I really wanted to tell you about. I'm going to tell you one last thing about our sheep. And I had the kind that for wool. In fact, I knew I wanted to learn to spin. So the ram that we got was a Lincoln. Naturally, I named him Abe, but he was black. And he didn't throw a lot of black lambs, though, but I had a few. And the first shearing that you shear of a sheep is called the prime wool. It is the very best you'll ever have. And when you shear a black sheep, that's the blackest. It will be the first shearing. Every shearing will get a little lighter, and finally you'll get this beautiful silver wool that you're shearing off. Just wonderful. And one year I made a rug out of it, like an accent rug, and I used the dark and I used the lighter wool to make it, or the lighter gray. It was quite pretty. Our son next door has it still. Anyway, shearing day. When we started out, it's a lot easier to shear just a few sheep, but when you have a lot more, it becomes a lot of work. And what we did, we sheared later in the season, not before the summer, not before the summer heat, but afterwards, closer to the time when they would lamb. They'd be clean, they wouldn't be so apt to sleep out where it was cold when they had their little lambs, because they wouldn't have that much wool, and lambs don't have that fat and that wool at first. So they need to be where it's warmer. And so in the fall, we'd shear. And finally it got, and we're in our 60s now, where we needed help. And I think this could be done, and you could you could make money. I mean, we didn't know enough to do it that way. We just asked for some help, and a whole crew came in, and we had it all organized. There would be so many on the wrangling type crew where we had gates all set up, and we had the sheep in there, and we'd try to get 1 to 3 sheep out at a time into the area where they were shearing. They were clipping hoofs, they were worming. If any of them needed to catch up on any of the other shots, we did it at that time. And then we ran them through and did this. And as the wool was sheared off, I would hand it with a name tag to the women that were working at the skirting table, and they were getting off the dirty wool and the stuff that obviously wasn't wool, and then rolling it up, tying it, and we put them in barrels until it was time for me to process them. But it was always nice to know which sheep I was spinning. I had one that I named polyester. And I always enjoyed telling people this was made out of polyester. But then after the shearing day and everyone helped, I had a big dinner together, and I usually like chicken enchiladas, that sort of thing, and salad, tea. We probably weren't coffee drinkers at that time, so I don't know if we had coffee, but we had lemonade, iced tea, whatever. And I can remember I had painted what I call the Psalms 23 series of painting, and the man that sheared not only got his paid for what he had done, but I asked if he'd like a painting from the sheep, and he picked one out. And I'm going to show you, I have a few left, and then that will be the end of my sheep stories for a while anyway. But I'll show you the pictures that I have left. I've sold some, I've given some away, so I don't have a lot of them left. But I'll tell you about them. This on the top, and that was our place, and there's some water and trees and the sheep down there. And then this one was one of the fields in the fall that they went out to, along with this one. And that's Abby, and I don't know who the other one, and this is out going to one of the fields. And I'm going to end with that, and you have a good day and enjoy.